Shalom, shalom, everyone. How are you all doing this evening? Thanks for joining me for another live session. Welcome to all of you, all of the first-time viewers, those returning who are usually here with us. Welcome and thanks for joining me again for another live session. Hello to you moderators, and thank you for all that you do. So, let's see, who do we have with us tonight? See a few folks rolling on in. Sister Cece Clifford, Cecilia Darnell, how are you? B. Smith, and I'm always Oniyinichi. I think I got it that time. All right, Naturally Reborn, Thadrian, Dinah Light, Daughter of the Most High. All right. Percy, how are you? Allie, how are you? Kimler, Paul Stewart, shalom to you. Waverly, Harold Brooks, how are you, Brother Harold? Davida, Portia, Juanitha, Patricia, Mai Yala. All right, Janet Powell. Who else we got with us? Rose, how are you, Sister Rose? Denise, Chine, Terry, Angela, Tracy, Most High Child, Mark, Vicky, yeah, I think that's how you say that one. Let my people go. All right. Yahweh's chosen. Hello, Sister Jill. So you don't have to run around shouting in your office tonight, Sister Jill. Alicia, how are you? Diamond Love, how are you? Sister Maria at Trumpet's Call. Linda, Carissa Love, Yabu. You all come up with some creative names. Inspired Identity. Lisa, Brother Don, how are you? Brian, Sunny, Shelly, Davida, Umaya, that's pretty. Valerie, Exodus 8, Kathleen, how are you? Joy, Rebounding. All right. A lot of folks rolling on in, still rolling on in. I'm trying to keep up with you all. Sister Ophelia, how are you? Shebrew Light, Dwayne Rainey Powell. Oh, goodness. Blessings to all of you, to all watching from the TV. My mom's sitting back watching. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, as I said, thanks for joining me for another live session. Now, I'm going to give you fair warning. Tonight's session may be a bit heavy for some, but I think it's information that we need to know. So this is going to be an extension of the message I uploaded this past Sunday, and you all had a lot to say. You all had a lot to say. So we'll probably have a lot of discussion tonight as well, which is great. It's good. So if you remember, I finished this session about remembering the first Exodus. And this past Sunday, I entitled the message, The Army That Came Out of Egypt. I would highly encourage you to go back and watch that message if you have not seen it, because I'm going to pick up some things from there. And I'm asking the question, what is wrong with us? And honestly, none of it will make sense until you look at our history in light of Scripture and all of the prophecies. that you'll see it is talking about us. When we look at the scriptures and we look at our condition, we'll see that we are the dry bones referenced in Ezekiel 37. So when the prophet Ezekiel saw the dry bones in this valley, he saw hopelessness, death, and despair. And when he looked at the dry bones and he saw these bones, it's like looking at us today, because that's exactly what we see when we look at our people. So, again, we're going to continue on with that discussion. So, let's go ahead and dig into this. All right. So, in order for the dry bones to live, our people need to breathe. We're not breathing yet as a people. So that's why you hear us and others asking, what's wrong with Black people? You all do some of the craziest things. Yes, you're right. So we won't see the manifestation in the natural until something happens in the spirit realm, that we are breathing and standing up as an army. And this is going to be the work of the Ruach, the work of the Holy Spirit. Also, if you watch the message from Sunday, you'll remember that I shared a video clip from Dr. Claude Anderson. And I thought he did a really good job of explaining the realities of how this system that we're in is set up to ensure the failure of our people. And I know, when you say that, we want to look around and say, but, we can see a lot of people doing well. We have some Black millionaires now. We had a Black president. We see a lot of Black people in politics, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not until you look at us as a whole, and you will see that we have not made a lot of progress, not at all. So this system is designed to make sure we stay on the bottom, especially the Black man. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, please hear me when I say our oppressors are more concerned with preventing the success of the Black man. And as I go through this, you will see why. With that being said, it's impossible for that not to affect the Black woman, and as a result, Black families. We've been on the bottom since we came to this country. And don't forget, we're scattered to the four corners. Wherever we are on the bottom. But what many of us fail to realize is that there are unseeing hands working behind the scenes to make sure it stays that way. And it's shocking to some, because we believe we've made progress. So as I go through this tonight, let's see how much progress we've really made. So, you all, when we ask the question, what is wrong with us? We need to make sure we have all of the facts to help us make sense of it. And honestly, you all, I'm going to say this, listen to me. I don't think we give the Europeans enough credit for how effective this system has been. European colonizers have been very thorough in gaining world dominance. But just like we didn't become the head in our own strength, the Most High caused us to be blessed and prosperous. They didn't achieve this level of success either without the help of unseen demonic forces. That's the key. And I don't think we grasp that fact. And this is why we can't deliver ourselves out of the system. And we also have to understand that the nations that colonize the world depends on it for their survival. So you have to go back and uncover the history to see what life was like for them before they became superpowers. We are the product that made the system work. So, what happened after the so called emancipation is even more sinister than what happened during slavery, I think. Because during slavery, we knew what they were doing. We knew what they were doing, why they were doing it, how they were doing it. Right now, we're under the delusion that things changed and it's all better, particularly our younger people. So we're not realizing that we're dealing with a chameleon that has changed its colors. And I'm talking about the system. You can't just look at individuals because they have also used many who look like us to help them keep the system in place. So we see integration, Blacks in politics, the millionaires, and even a few billionaires. And when we look at what we consider to be their level of success, then the question becomes, what's wrong with the rest of us then? Because the system would have us to believe that, oh, anybody can, reach as high as they can possibly reach in this level. And if you don't, then the problem is with you. And we've been beating up on ourselves and allowing others to beat up on us because we're asking, well, what's wrong with us? Everybody else is making it. Why can't we do the same? So we're going to go through this. And I think you may be surprised because we're going to pull back the curtain so that you can see that we may see Black bodies, but as a people, we're not breathing yet. Did you know that we still own less than 5% of the wealth in this nation? Or that there are only 4 Black CEOs in Fortune 500 companies? So let's look at how the system ensures that the majority of our people will remain on the bottom from birth. Don't miss that. So I'm going to share excerpts from a report from the Marshall Project called the Black Mortality Gap. And it says, the Black Mortality Gap, and a century-old document. 1 in 5 African American deaths happens earlier than if they were white. Black doctors say the Flexner report holds clues to the health system's role in racial health disparities. So let's take a look at this. This is from the Marshall report. So you see a lot of what looks like dirt on the screen, like dust. So it says if Black Americans died at the same rates as white Americans in 2019, about 294,000 Black Americans would have died. So each dot that you see represents 10 people. Now, I want you to look at this. Here's what those deaths would look like arranged by age. Now, pay attention to age 1. So you see age 1, age 10, 25, age 50, age 75, and then 100 plus. So this is what those deaths would look like if it was arranged by age. All right. Now pay attention because I want you to see this. It says, due to racial disparities in mortality, Black Americans die younger at almost every age. It says, here are actual deaths in 2019. Over 72,000 more Black Americans died at younger ages. Now, I'm about to show you something. It shocked me because I didn't, it saddened me and it shocked me because I didn't know this, but let's keep going. It says, once Americans reached their mid 80s, Black people began to have lower death rates than whites. Now think about that. Once they reach mid 80s, our people die less than whites, with about 11,000 fewer Black deaths in 2019. All right, pay attention. The biggest inequality affected Black infants, who had more than twice the white infant mortality rate. It says in 2019, almost 3,600 more Black babies died before their first birthday. Just think about that. Look at the slide. Look at age 1. Age 1. So based on the information in this report, the age group most affected by inequality was infants. Did you know that? It says Black babies were more than twice as likely as white babies to die before their first birthday. And it says the overall mortality disparity has existed for centuries, you all. So just stop there, pause, and think on that. Why the children? Why the children? Why are so many Black babies dying before their first birthday? Now, if you read the article, I encourage you to pull it up. It also says racism drives some of the key social determinants of health, like lower levels of income and generational wealth, less access to healthy food, water, and public spaces, environmental damage, over policing, and disproportionate incarceration, and the stresses of prolonged discrimination. So you all, we have to ask, was Flint, Michigan water crisis an accident? So let's see what you all are saying, because I was really shocked by what I was reading. I just did not know that our babies, a large percentage of them, were not reaching their first birthday. That's troubling. That's very troubling. So Davida says, this is why Esau created hospital. Jabrani says, no such thing as accidents. Portia, Flint was no accident. Dwayne says, yeah, we definitely know America is modern day Egypt. Yeah, biological warfare, Operation Paperclip. See, Juanitha, no, it was intentional. Yahuwah's chosen, very sad. You all, again, I was surprised. Let's go on, and you're going to see that, yeah, when you put all of this together, something's happening here that we're not paying attention to. So I covered this in the Remembering the First Exodus series, that there has been a concentrated effort to keep our numbers low, and it's been happening in ways we never suspected. Now, most of us know about our abortion rates and how the clinics are conveniently placed in our communities. So that strategy is used to prevent Blacks from being born. But are the numbers why are the numbers so high for babies so that they don't see their first birthday? So, this is a transcript of a recording from NPR entitled Black Babies Twice as Likely as Whites to Die Before Age 1. So, I will read some of this. I'm going to make this a little bigger so I can see it here. So, they're interviewing this person. And they're saying Black babies are 2 times as likely to die before they reach their first birthday than white babies. That's just one of the startling facts in Priska Neely's reporting on a gap in birth outcomes that has persisted for years. It says poverty, education, healthcare access, all of these things are factors. But now the research is focused on the role of racism in these statistics. So it says Neely is responding. It says prematurity is the leading cause here. So most of the babies are born too early and too small. This is not a new issue, and it goes back decades. So she did some digging in the library and actually found a transcript of a congressional hearing from 1984 that was called Failure to Close the Black-White Gap. But here we are 30 years later, and the gap is still there, she says. So things have improved. Fewer babies die in general now as we've gotten better at healthcare and keeping preemies alive, but that gap is still there. So it says there have been studies done looking at the birth outcomes for African immigrants. Listen, African immigrants who come here to have babies, and their outcomes are more similar to white women. Explain that, family. Explain that. Something is seriously wrong with that picture. Something is wrong. Let's keep going. So, this is from MedPage Today, and it's entitled Racial Bias in Flexner Report Permeates Medical Education Today. If you get an opportunity, look up that report, Flexner Report, because it's saying by 1923, only 66 medical schools remain. 66 medical schools. And 5 of 7 existing Black medical schools were closed. 5 of 7. It says in 1910, African Americans comprised 2.5 of U.S. physicians, which would actually decrease to 2.2 as a result of them closing these facilities. So in 2008, before rising to about 5% of the workforce today, African Americans account for about 13% of the general U.S. population. Now, for as long as I can remember, we've hovered at 12 to 13% of the population. How is that after all this time here? So Wayne Frederick, a doctor, says the Flexner Report was the catalyst for this, because it says the Flexner Report centralized the scientific method, increased the number of academic institutions, and reduced the number of for-profit proprietary schools. But I'm going to drop down. It says in his report, Flexner wrote, listen, that African American physicians should be trained in hygiene rather than surgery. Pause and think on that. And should primarily serve as sanitarians whose purpose was protecting whites from common diseases like tuberculosis. That's what he thought the Black doctors should be doing. I'm going to read a bit more and then I'll see what you all are saying. So it says some clues to why healthcare is failing African Americans can be found in a document written over 100 years ago, the Flexner Report. Published in 1910, the Flexner Report blasted the unregulated state of medical education, urging professional standards to produce a force of fewer and better doctors. The new rules brought advances to doctors across the country, giving the field a new level of scientific rigor and protections for patients. That's how they marketed it. But there was also a lesser known side of the Flexner Report. Black Americans already had an inferior experience with the health system. Now, you want to guess what those inferior experiences were? Maybe the syphilis they gave to Black men or the Henrietta Lacks story. So it said Black patients received segregated care. Black medical students were excluded from training programs, so they wouldn't allow them to get these advanced training. So Black physicians lacked resources for their practice. They wouldn't allow them to get the training or get access to the new, equipment, etc., that they were bringing out. So then this report says, well, you all don't have the resources to be practicing medicine. So let's go on. So it says, of the 7 Black medical schools that existed at the time, only 2, Howard and Meharry, remained for Black applicants who were barred from historically white institutions. So it says the new requirements for students, in particular, the higher tuition fees, so they charged more, prompted by the upgraded medical school standards, also meant those with wealth and resources were overwhelmingly more likely to get in than those without. So that should tell you what happened to our Black doctors. So it says the report recommended that Black doctors see only Black patients and that they should focus on areas like hygiene, calling it dangerous for them to specialize in other parts of the profession. Flexner said the white medical field should offer Black patients care as a moral imperative, but also because it was necessary to prevent them from transmitting diseases to white people. So integration was seen as medically dangerous. You all, I'm not finished. It goes on. So it says, today, Black people make up 13% of Americans, but 5% of physicians, up just 2 percentage points from half a century ago. In the higher paying specialties, the gap grows. So doctors from less wealthy backgrounds and other disadvantaged groups were underrepresented too. So this disparity appears to have real-world effects on patients. Don't miss this. A study showed that Black infant mortality reduced by half when a Black doctor provided treatment. Another study showed that Black men, when seen by Black doctors, more often agreed to certain preventative measures. Data showed over 60% of Black medical school enrollees plan to practice in underserved communities, compared with less than 30% of whites. I know you all are chiming in there. You all. So now you see why there are so many Black babies dying. Now you see why. It's Yahoo Conan says, Yahusha, I pray to you to deliver our prayers to Abba Yah, that we hear what we're hearing. May you, Abba, quicken us beyond our instructions and do for our people, every man and woman, take up a family. You all, this was alarming to me. Let my people go, says home birth I'm getting for sure. And I think a lot of our people are moving in that direction. Midwives. Jason, shalom, sister. Okay. So I think that's supposed to be Smith. I'm not sure. We are far more humane than they could ever be. Yeah, Drea, I heard about that as well. Yeah. Here's the thing about that as well, though, Drea, and this is the part that a lot of our people don't hear. This advanced history class that they're talking about, they also want to include information about the alphabet community and the trans lifestyle. So they tack all of that onto Black history because, of course, it's civil rights. So it's like, well, in order for you to teach this about Black history, you also need to teach about the alphabet community in this class. So according to some reports, he was also objecting to that being taught as well. And he was saying it shouldn't be that Black history is attached to that, to sexual issues. So inspired in identity, we need an Israelite midwives network. For those of you who are experienced in that area, I would encourage it. Moray Dwayne he's been talking about this for a while now. We have to look at ways to put our skills and talents and resources together. Yes. So you all, it's interesting. But again, we believe that things changed. Yeah. Sister Jill, this is something I want, and I'm looking for folks to help with that project. I was talking to Moray Dwayne about that. We need a green book. We really do. It was used back in the day so that we would know, what we had in our community. So, yeah, we need to work on putting that together. If you have the skills and talents to help us get that done, reach out and let's see what we can do in that regard. Or if you know of someone who's already done it, then there's no point in reinventing the wheel. But yeah, you all. All right, Sister Jill, then yeah, let's reach out and see what we can do. If there are others interested in that, then reach out, because you all, I'm really trying to guard my words here. You all be praying. So I'm still trying to get over the fact that Black mortality rates declined when a Black doctor provided treatment for the babies. So are we dealing with a level playing field here? Can we just say that we are being targeted at conception? Again, we're not focusing on individuals. We're looking at the system. But in order to make this system work, you need those who know what's going on. And they are doing what's necessary to keep it going. So I want to make this crystal clear to you that we had a lot of help getting to the bottom and staying on the bottom. We had a lot of help. All right, let's keep going. So let's take a look at this. It says half of the 250 kids expelled from preschool each day are Black boys. Pay attention to what's going on with the Black boys. It says racism and overstressed teachers help explain high expulsion rates for Black preschool boys. You do know that there's more to it than this, right? Why is this significant? Well, let's go on and you will see why. So it says in early October of last year, this family resource specialist in Pittsburgh got a call from a mother of a 3-year-old boy who was about to be expelled from preschool. And the school was tired of him being disruptive. It claimed that he would throw blocks, he wasn't following directions, he was refusing to sit at circle time, and periodically he was running from the classroom. So she says that this would normally be seen as typical developmental preschool behavior, especially for a child with a speech impediment. Pay attention to that. So it says these teachers identified Black students' behavior as more problematic compared with white students. So the author says even though these differences were not seen in directly observed behavior in the laboratory. So when I worked in the school system as a coach, I had to go around and observe teachers in their classrooms. And usually these were teachers who struggled with classroom management. And we then had to prepare a plan of action to help them be more successful. So there were times when we would go in and model the lessons for the teachers and show them how to manage, their classes properly. And I can tell you that in most of those cases, we did not have a lot of students acting out. Did not. So in most of the cases where there were problems, you want to take a guess about the group we're talking about who had trouble managing Black children, and in particular, Black boys. So there was a study done. So it says Black boys matter. It says strategies for a culturally responsive classroom. It says in American classrooms, including preschool classrooms, studies show that Black boys are more likely to be seen as problem children than their peers, and they are less likely to be considered ready for school. So a Yale Child Center study found that preschool teachers spent more time watching Black children than white children when looking for disruptive behaviors. So it says proactive, culturally competent teachers can work to counter these misperceptions. And I can tell you, the majority of the problems is that these teachers are not competent when it comes to classroom management. They are not competent. So it says they need teachers to counter these misperceptions and create classroom environments where Black boys feel welcome to learn, dream, and be themselves. So I also took another piece from the article where it says 3 ways teachers can take this approach are by tapping into the power of history, celebrating Black boys in books, and rethinking school readiness. Now, why would this be a problem? Why would this be a problem for Black boys? This is an important piece right here because research show that men are more competitive than women. And I would say more so for Black boys. So by the third grade, when they're beginning to teach the history lesson about slavery, and all he's told is that you all came here as slaves, and then he's sitting next to this little white boy, and 98% of the history book is showing all of the accomplishments of white men. Do you think that's going to negatively impact him? He will only see himself represented as weak. So there's a tendency to overcompensate for that. Black boys are more likely to be placed in special education classes. So what is that system preparing him for? Do you see the hand at work in this? Do you see the hand at work here? Y'all. If your children are only taught that they came here as slaves, and I know what the curriculum looked like for that state for third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, etc. For the third grade curriculum, there may have been three content areas, but primarily it was about slavery. It was Martin Luther King. It was Rosa Parks. Let's see who else. Not much else, honestly. Not maybe famous Black people. So they would probably throw in Oprah or the Obamas. But other than that, no, they are not. They have already told you they are not going to teach Black history. They've already told you that. That's another area we need to work on, you all. I was talking to my sister about this, like we got to get our kids out of these schools. You all, a lot of work. A lot of work. We rarely had problems. And actually, when I was actually in the classroom, most of the children they considered problem kids, they brought to my classroom from other teachers' classroom. Well, can he spend the day in your classroom? She's having a hard time. And it's like, okay, so you're being paid to teach, but you can't handle your students, so you're bringing them to another classroom. You see what I'm saying? So then the other alternative, and that's exactly right, Sister Jill, medication. Well, your child needs to be medicated. Calvin, no, they're not going to talk about Malcolm X. No, they're not talking about Malcolm X. You can forget that one. But we have to pay attention to this. I can remember, oh my word, when my son was in school, I thought those teachers had me on speed dial. Oh my word. It was like, what in the world? And my daughter and I talked about this. My son has like photographic memory. And her and I are like, we had to fight for every A we got. He could just read something and he just remember it. And I remember one of his teachers was honest. He was in the advanced placement classes, and he was just, it's like, oh Lord, if the school calls me one more time. So, I was talking with this teacher, and he was like, you know what? I honestly think this class is just not right for him. He needs to be in the higher level class, because I thought he just, wasn't paying attention, etc. So I challenged him one day, and I was asking him, I bet you don't know about who invented the toilets or something like that. And he said, and he answered me and he told me who invented it, when he invented it, and then he gave me some other information. And he said, I was just kind of speechless. So, family, the majority of the time, it's not because our kids cannot learn. That is not the issue. For a Black boy, they learn differently. And if they're not engaged, they're going to act out, a lot of them. I never got calls about my daughter. No calls. But for him, it's like, oh my word. So we have to pay attention and see what's going on here. Weena says, I sent mine to a historical Black high school so they wouldn't have to deal with that. And I homeschooled mine for 2 years in elementary. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, we eventually moved him at then it was a Christian Black school. But you all, woo, Rico said they convinced my mom to put my brother on meds when he was in school. The teacher also told my mom that I might be autistic. My mom cussed her out for that. Okay. She like, no, we're not having that. We not having that. So you have to understand what they're setting these children up for, because you know what comes next. Once they get them in special ed, get them on meds, start expelling them, then we know what's going to happen next. So this is from CNN. Black children are 6 times more likely to be shot to death by police, study finds. 6 times more likely. 6 times. Hispanic children were 3 times more likely. It says the results are not surprising, but that doesn't take away from the tragedy of these results. When we see that this extends to children, this makes this issue even more tragic. So think about this, family. If you make it out of the womb, because they already have a system in place to make it easier for Black women to not have the baby in the first place. So if you make it out of the womb, past year 1, you get past the first year, and you get through preschool, what's the next hurdle? What's the next hurdle? Being expelled, dropping out of school, and then crime. That's the next hurdle. So again, what are they setting them up for? So this comes from U.S. News. The racial makeup of America's prisons. Nationally, Black Americans are incarcerated at nearly 5 times the rate of white Americans, though in some states, the disparity is far greater. So you see the narrative here. Well, they're more violent. They're prone to violence. They're criminals. So once you prepare them, they were saying this prison pipeline that they are preparing these children for, we have to ask the question, why? Because what's waiting for you? If you see the makeup of America's prison, that's what they're preparing them for. So, family, think about this. As a people, we find ourselves in the original state as when we got to this nation. Because what are they doing? What's the benefit of getting so many of them in prison? Well, let's see. We know that they're using them for the prison labor. So there was a report to the United Nations on racial disparities in the U.S. criminal justice system. And it says the Sentencing Project submitted a report to the United Nations Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. So they always have to tack that on to our situation. So it says the United States criminal justice system is the largest in the world. In the world. At year-end 2015, over 6.7 million individuals were under some form of correctional control in the United States, including 2.2 million incarcerated in federal, state, or local prisons and jails. It says the U.S. is a world leader. The U.S. is a world leader in its rate of incarceration, dwarfing the rate of nearly every other nation. Such broad statistics mask the racial disparity that pervades the U.S. criminal justice system. And for African Americans in particular, African Americans are more likely than white Americans to be arrested. Once arrested, they are more likely to be convicted. And once convicted, they are more likely to experience lengthy prison sentences. African American adults are might as well say 6 times as likely to be incarcerated than whites, and Hispanics are 3.1 times as likely. So you all, listen to this. As of 2001, 1 out of every 3 Black boys in that year could expect to go to prison in his lifetime. 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3. You all. So if you make it to your teen years, this is what's waiting for you. This is what's waiting for you. And this is where the system needs them to be. Because prison labor is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They're providing free labor. Incarcerated people do everything from building office furniture and making military equipment to staffing call centers. And don't miss this, incarcerated workers are not included in official employment statistics. So, do you see how much money those companies are saving? Just use prison labor. So go back and read the 13th Amendment. Go and look up stories of former judges who sent kids to jail because they were getting kickbacks. Is the system rigged or not? Do you see how we got to the bottom and we stay on the bottom? This is a capitalistic system, and it cannot work without these wicked schemes. So how could this be a system that honors the Most High? How could it honor the Most High? You all, Roderick says they build prisons according to blacks. The birth rate, I bet. Possibly. Calvin says, can you say slave? Yeah, Davida, the entire system is criminal. Cecilia says 4 of those judges were just charged in Pennsylvania. Of course, they're still doing it. Waverly says just like the 3-strike law. Yes. Yes. They imprison a lot of our people knowing that they put the drugs in the neighborhood. Now, if that is not wicked, If that is not wicked. Chine says they give them a criminal record so that they can't get a passport. Not only that, they can't vote. And that's going to follow them, so they're not able to really get good jobs. So where does that leave them? They go back into the life of crime. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Now I'm going to take you in a different direction. Because if you think about the attacks being on the Black male, let's look at the marriage statistics by race. And you can see for Blacks, the green is never been married. Never been married now. 50% of our people have never been married. For Hispanics, 43%. For whites, 28%. Asians, 31%. So let me ask you, who are Black women going to marry? We got the abortion rates killing a lot of our people before they're born. You have the high infant mortality rate before they reach age 1. Then you have them being funneled into a life of crime in the prison system. So you have a disproportionate number in the prison system. Is it hard to imagine that this never been married category is so high for us? Do you see that? Do you see that? You all. So if they make it to adulthood, what's the next hurdle? Ensuring that you will not have a successful marriage to someone who looks like you. Because they know that the studies show that strong families help to build strong nations. And let's not forget that we are a nation. We are a nation. So African Americans are the least married of any major racial ethnic group in America. Least. So what are the odds that a Black woman will get married to a Black man? You all. What are the odds? So here's the next strategy they came up with for you Black single women. They say one sociologist says it's time for Black women to date white men. That's their answer. That's their solution. Not Chinese men, not Korean men, not Hispanic men, specifically white men. So create the problem and then provide the desired solution. So I looked at this article from The Guardian. It says, what's behind the rise of interracial marriage in the U.S.? It says, overall, the most common type of intermarriage is between a partner who is white and one who is Hispanic of any race. Those relationships accounted for 38% of all intermarriages in 2010. But it says white Asian couples accounted for another 14% of intermarriages, and white Black couples made up 8%, so much lower than the other groups. So it says in 2008, 22% of Black male newlyweds chose partners of another race. 22% of Black men. Compared, look at this now, to just 9% of Black female newlyweds. So the sisters are holding out, hoping to marry Black men. So, brothers, you got to own this now. Let's look at these stats. Now, and we know that there's a concerted effort now to push that for Black women. I read one article, it really made me sad. They were basically saying in this article, based on these numbers for Black women, you really need to stop waiting and go ahead and start marrying outside of your race because Black men are simply not interested. I was like, whoa. Yeah. So they create the problem, they kill off a lot of the men, incarcerate the others. A large percentage are dealing with drug and alcohol abuse. And now there is this big void, and they're saying to Black women, well, you need to look outside of your race. So, family, yeah. These are the actual numbers. I'm going to say, sisters, you have to own your part as well, because our women are assisting the system with abortion. How are we helping with the number of Black babies that we are voluntarily erasing, not even allowing them to be born? So you have to own your part in that as well. So what's wrong with our people? Do we need to ask? Do we need to ask? But you all, there's a lot more that we have to contend with. A lot more than that. This is not it, because as you go on, you see that there are other issues that we have to deal with as a people. The issues that we rarely talk about. Nobody's talking about it, really. Can the legacy of trauma be passed down the generations? Our children and grandchildren are shaped by the genes they inherit from us. But new research is revealing that experiences of hardship or violence can leave their mark too. So in 1864, nearing the end of the U.S. Civil War, conditions in the Confederate prisoner of war camps were at their worst. There was such overcrowding in some camps that the prisoners, Union Army soldiers from the North, each had the square footage of a grave. Prisoner death rates soared. For those who survived, the harrowing experiences marked many of them for life. They returned to society with impaired health, worse job prospects, and shorter life expectancy. But the impact of these hardships did not stop with those who experienced it. It also had an effect on the prisoners' children and grandchildren, which appeared to be passed down the male line of families. While their sons and grandsons had not suffered the hardships of their POW camps or of the POW camps, and if anything, were well provided for through their childhoods, they suffered higher rates of mortality than the wider population. It appeared the POWs had passed on some element of their trauma to their offspring. Now, you tell me what has been passed on over 400 years. What kind of trauma has been passed on? We still have to deal with that trauma that has been passed down to us as a result of slavery. in addition to everything I just covered. You all, these traumas impact everything we just talked about. Let's look at some of them. Stockholm syndrome. What is it? A psychological response to being held captive. People with Stockholm syndrome form a psychological connection with their captors and begin sympathizing with them. In addition to the original kidnapper hostage situation, Stockholm syndrome now includes other types of trauma in which there is a bond between the abuser and the person being abused. Many medical professionals consider the victim's positive feelings toward their abuser a psychological response, a coping mechanism that they use to survive the days, weeks, or even years of trauma or abuse. So other closely linked psychological conditions include trauma with bonding. Do we have an issue? Do we have trouble bonding with our relatives, our children, our parents? Learned helplessness. This is definitely a major problem for our people. A lot of our people are content to just get welfare. I am hearing a lot of people saying, well, I'm just trying for, what is it called? Disability. Battered person syndrome is another effect, another condition as a result of Stockholm syndrome. Do you see what we're dealing with? So what causes it? Well, they say they don't know. Of course they know. But they say one theory is that it's a learned technique passed down from our ancestors. It says another theory is that a captive of abuse situation is highly emotional charge. People adjust their feelings and start having compassion for their abuser when they're shown some kindness over time. Also, by working with and not fighting against an abuser, victims may secure their safety. And we know that our people had to do that. When not harmed by their abuser, a victim may feel grateful and even view their abuser as humane. So what are the symptoms? Again, they have positive feelings toward the abusers or captors. They have sympathy for their captors' beliefs and behaviors, and this is why so many of our people want to be like them. We try to adopt the behaviors, want to make our skin white, our hair straight, some of the other things. They have negative feelings toward police or other authority figures. Do we see what's going on with our Black boys in authority? Let's go on. So the Cleveland Clinic, it says after abuse or being held captive, they might also have many other symptoms, including, and I highlighted, feelings of emptiness, feelings of hopelessness. Isn't that what the dry bones said? All hope is lost for us. Depression. Again, we see learned helplessness, excessive dependence. There are so many of our people who try to get ahead and they have family members who just can never seem to get ahead. So you're always sending money their way because it's always, I need. Excessive dependence. Father. So this one from the Mayo Clinic. So not only Stockholm syndrome, we have to deal with PTSD. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event. So can we say centuries? Either experiencing it or witnessing it. Symptoms, let me go back to that. either experiencing it or witnessing it. So you remember during slavery, they would force the other slaves to watch the punishment. They would have to watch what they were doing to them so that they wouldn't dare do the same thing, like try to run away. So they would say they had a mental condition if the slaves tried to escape. They were crazy for trying to escape. So it says symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, uncontrollable thoughts. Most people who go through traumatic events may have temporary difficulty adjusting and coping. With time, good self-care, they usually get better. If the systems get worse, last for months or even years, and interfere with your day-to-day functioning, you may have PTSD. You may. Okay. So what are some of the negative changes in those who have PTSD? I highlighted difficulty maintaining close relationships. Do you see what our people are dealing with here? Feeling detached from family and friends. Difficulty experiencing positive emotions. So even though we did not go through it, these things were passed on. The inability to form healthy relationships, they were passed on. Do you see the commonalities here? The feelings of hopelessness, failure, the negative thoughts about yourself and others. Can we say black on black crime, family violence, high rates of domestic violence in the Black communities? Do you see the connection? It's a sure sign for us that the dry bones can't breathe. Jill says self-sabotage. Yes. RY. I've definitely felt this. Yeah. Queen Mommy, dysfunctional, emotionally disconnected. Davita, rejection. Rejection is a big one for our people. A big one. Chosen by y'all, absolutely. Yeah. What's wrong with us? What is wrong with us? It says changes in some of the physical and emotional reactions. The self-destructive behavior. Someone just mentioned that. Always being on guard for danger. Trouble concentrating. Irritability, angry outbursts, or aggressive behavior. Do we need to ask why we see so many reports of Black men who are taking it out on Black women, on their children? And that's not to say that we don't have aggressive Black women, because we do. We do. But the angry outbursts, where is that coming from? Calvin said, what's not wrong? Look, what's not wrong? What's not wrong? There are so many issues, so many things wrong going on in our community. So do we really need to ask what's wrong with our people? We need our breath. If you have some semblance of sanity and you are in a healthy relationship, or you have healthy relationships, you need to lift your hands and give Yah praise, because it's only His grace that allowed it. Look, for a Black couple in a successful marriage, raising healthy Black kids, You are the exception. You are not the norm. You're the exception. The fact that my husband and I married 36 going on 37 years, having a black son, black grandsons who are not in prison, we're the exception. Because as you can see, the overwhelming majority of our people don't make it to that point. And we need to ask, what's wrong with us? What is wrong with us? If you are an Israelite black couple and the two of you are doing Torah together, you're a rarity. You're rare. I hope you hear me. This system has been rigged. So we need to stop trying to condemn and beat each other up. What's wrong with us? Look, how could there not be issues for us to deal with, family? How could there not be issues? So why do you think the Most High allowed some of us to wake up before the majority of our people wake up? You're awake so that you can spread the good news to the rest of the dry bones, so that they can hear and live. You are here for such a time as this, not to curse those who are not breathing yet, but to speak life. Because but for the grace of the Most High, all of the negative things happening to our people could be happening to you. So don't keep speaking the problem. Speak the solution. Black women and Black men are hurting. Both of you are dealing with the effects of what is broken in our homes, in our relationships, finances, and communities. So I really have a hard time when brothers keep going in on sisters and sisters keep going in on brothers. Stop it. Please stop it. We have enough haters. Our families are hurting. Our houses have been left to us desolate. But let me go back to what I said in the beginning when I said the focus has been on destroying the Black man. It's because the father sets order in the home. We are a fatherless generation. What's happening to us in the natural is a reflection of what happened to us in the spirit. We have been without our Father, and nothing else will work until that comes into alignment. I take joy in listening to my husband talk about his father and his grandfather. He tells me about times when his grandfather would get all of the kids on the back of the wagon and he would just take them around the neighborhood on like a hayride. And he talk about his experiences, all of the kids would go with dad fishing. And, I can remember one time when he was saying, oh, we would take a Coke bottle and we put the peanuts in the bottle. And that's what we look forward to when we went fishing. He would tell me about a time when his grandfather, he said, I actually saw my grandfather take his fist and knock his mule down because the mule wouldn't do what he said. And he'd say he was a strong man. Granddaddy was strong. But he didn't use his strength to beat on his wife and abuse his children. So when I listen to him, I take pleasure in that because I didn't grow up with a father. Most of us did not. When you look at the statistics, most of us didn't grow up with a father. I really didn't have that relationship with my father until I was in my mid 20s. And you all, there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of bitterness. And I usually don't share too much about my family because it's not about me. I only share things that I think will help you. I had a lot of anger toward my father, bitterness. And my husband had a talk with him. I didn't know it until much later. Didn't know this. And things didn't really get much better, but I took it before the Most High. Those long night prayers, laying on my face before the Most High, just weeping, like, what is wrong with me, Abba Yah? Some of the same things that I just talked about, I was dealing with, failing at miserably, and took it to Him, praying for healing, for restoration. And then He gave me a word. And you all, it was such a simple question that had me weeping for I don't know how long. The simple question was, who has loved you? And then He showed me, because I never connected this with my mother and my father. They were both orphans. Not that their parents had died. Neither one had grown up with their mother and father. They were raised by grandparents. So neither one grew up with their father in the home. They were orphans. And He told me what my issue was. And it's the same issue that we are dealing with as a people. It's the spirit of the orphan. I had never heard of that before. Never heard of it. And then, so after He explained what was at the root of all of it, He gave me a strategy. And I followed through with it with my dad. And the two of us met, and I followed through with what the Most High told me to do. And over time, the relationship got much better. I absolutely enjoy talking to him. He has a serious sense of humor. Usually when I call him, I hear one of two things. This is the White House or Joe's Pizzeria, or whatever he calls it. But he has a great sense of humor. I love talking to him, spending time with him. My mother, we have grown. We had to get through many hurdles because I couldn't see what was at the root, but they both had the same issue. They didn't know how to be parents. So they passed a lot of those things on. Our ancestors passed a lot of those things on. We're dealing with those things now. And you're right, Matthew. You may have both in the house, but they both may be broken and not know how to, have a healthy family. But later on, my father and I actually wrote a book that is still yet to be published, talking about that and talking about how the Most High brought that back together and brought healing to that relationship. We need to be healed, family. We are still a broken people. We don't have our breath yet. So it's not doing us any good for our people to keep beating up on the same people who are broken. Why? Why? Ooh, you all. The Most High is the only one who can deliver us and heal us. And He told us that. He told us that. Nothing's going to work until the Father's house comes into alignment. No one else can deliver us from this. But I am going to share more on this in the next video message, because I need you to understand that breath has to come to us before the nation can live and the army can stand. We're trying to put the apples before the apple cart. We're trying to compare our success to their success. They don't have half of the hurdles we have to deal with. So we will cover that in the next session. Let's see what you all are saying. I know I kind of went in on some of that. Matthew says we need rest from all of this. Yes, 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 we do. Let's see. The king's daughter, and no man shall redeem you. That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. Praises to Yah, Bruce, for that comment. Yes, only he can do it. Only he can do it. Waverly said, that's my mother, the spirit of an orphan. I'm exhausted getting her to break the generational curses. Some people you just have to let go. I did my best. Yes, there are some times when you have to remove yourself from a situation that's unhealthy, that's causing mental stress and anguish, but keep it before the Most High to bring about healing. Because I'm a living witness that he will do. It didn't happen overnight, you all. It did not happen overnight. But the Most High did it. He did it. So you all pray, because the Most High know what the issues are that your particular family is dealing with. Most of us, we can look around at our relatives and see there's a lot. There is a lot that we're dealing with. Cecilia, the Most High is the best healer. Absolutely. And we need emotional healing. Black Beauty, spirit of an orphan is deep. It really is. It's on my to-do list. I'm hoping to get that book finished soon, so that can be released and it can bless you all like the other one did. But just know that the Most High is able. Kelsey, praises to y'all for that comment. He is definitely doing the work. And I'm praying that, again, that's usually a good part of my prayer time, is praying for healing for our people, because we need it. We need it. But, you know, when we look at our people and see everything that's going on, did we expect that we would escape from all of that and not have some trauma? I mean, just think about it. Did we think that we wouldn't have trauma? There's a reason he said he's going to cleanse us and heal us. We need the balm of Gilead, family. We are broken. Broken. But you know what? The ones who have been broken are the ones he uses most. He can do his best work through a broken vessel, because we can remember, we can see where we came from. We can know that it's not us. We'll know that he did it. He did it. Praises to Yah, Sister Cece. Yeah, I pray that the message has been a blessing. Again, we'll dig a little deeper on the live, not the live, you all. No more lives this week. The video on Sunday, because we have to stop attacking each other. The hurting are hurting as well, and we're just taking out our hurts and our anger on each other, the men attacking the women attacking the men. It's so discouraging. Husbands and wives attacking each other, and the children are just left, having to deal with that. We have to realize that all of us are dealing with something. We didn't come out of this unscathed. It affected all of us, family. It really did. So you need to hear what the Most High says to you during your time of prayer. Ask Him to reveal those things that are still, the residual effects of what happened to our people. But the other thing that we have to look at is, why would we want to be like the ones who helped to get us in this condition? Compare ourselves to the ones who had a hand in doing this. Mimic their behaviors. Why? Why? Think about it. All right. So we're going, 9:31. Calvin is needing his coffee right about now. So we're going to get ready to wrap up this session. As I said, look for the next one on Sunday. We're going to see how the curses that were placed on us comes upon our enemies. And it's already happening. So be sure to tune in for that. And one quick announcement, Daughters of Zion, we just wrapped up our study of the book of Revelation last month, and we will begin with the book of Enoch. There will be our new study for those who are interested in small group Bible study. So if you're interested, you can send us an email for that. So family, thanks again for joining me tonight. What a blessing it has been. I think you all pulled out a lot more than I wanted to get into. But yes, thank you, Sister Jill. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate our why for the last series. Oh, I'm happy to hear that was a blessing. So happy to hear that. Just know that it's coming from Him. I don't want to speak my own words because they mean nothing. They mean nothing. You're welcome, Black Beauty. Kathy says, hurting people unfortunately hurt people. We need healing and deliverance from our trauma. Most certainly so. Certainly so. You all will get there. We will get there. B. Smith, the most broken people make the best leaders. Yeah. And we can look at the leaders we've had in Israel and see how that worked. I mean, just thinking about Joseph. Oh, my word. David went through something too now. Yeah. Cecilia says, we don't know how broken we are. And that's right. We need the Most High to show it to us, because sometimes we can think we got it going on, and we just don't realize that we're limping. We're limping, and we need Abba Yah to heal us. Yes. All right, family, we're going to end it there. Again, thanks for being with me tonight. Thank you, moderators, for holding it down. And I will see you next time. Shalom, everyone.